Yetta, what's the difference between 99% and 101%?
How about 2% by the sounds of it?
It's true, but it's the difference between peace or having no peace when it comes to your spending habits.
Ouch. Okay.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.
We are honored that for over 30 years, we've been able to come alongside you, not only to build your wealth, like buying, investing, and selling in real estate, but really 30 years of coming alongside you, making really wise investment decisions, money decisions, and actually building some fun, some faith, and even flourishing healing in your relationships. We're going to consider this time, actually. We'll go on a discovery journey. This is the Discovery Channel
Nice,
segment.
I was going to say that. Okay, what are we going to discover?
We're going to discover that the wise money principles, if we could just apply them, the ones that God gave us in the Bible, it would change everything for us. Application is the discovery on this one.
Okay.
It's not just knowing it, because one of the things that we've often talked about is knowing information, having knowledge about information. There's not much new under the sun.
No, they say knowledge is power, but really
it's applied
knowledge.
Knowledge is power. And God gave us the word. Most of us know the scriptures that we've been highlighting in segment A and B. And now we're in segment C. I suspect every single one of you, if you're listening on chri, and maybe if you're listening on YouTube, you don't know them all. And yet you've probably heard the premise of most of these principles. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're living it.
Yeah. And that's the problem with knowledge. You see, right now we have, Google brought a lot of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And you're using AI way more than Google now because you can develop very detailed answers. And there's...
As long as you verify everything.
Yeah. But knowledge, that's knowledge.
Yep.
Wisdom is how you use it. And wisdom's becoming more and more important, how it's implemented.
Which is what the Bible's all about, is the wisdom, not just the knowledge.
Yeah.
And wisdom is the applied knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
Right. That's where we're going with it.
Okay.
So Malachi 3:10, what did he talk about?
Well, as far as I'm aware, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the only place in the Bible where God says, test me. Because many places he says, don't test the Lord. Right? Don't
do it. It's not going to go well for you.
He says, give me the full tithe and test me on it. Bring this tithe in and see if I don't basically blow the doors off the storehouses, that you will be blessed. And it's not so much a prosperity gospel, because some people say, oh no, you bring in the money, you're going to get a ton more money. He says he's going to blow the doors off on blessing. Blessing can be joy, peace.
And that's why at the beginning you said, what's the difference between 99?
Spending 99% of what you earn.
And 101, and it's 2%. Well, it is only 2%. And really what Ken was alluding to is if you spend everything you have plus a little bit extra, it's going to create a very nasty life for you. Right? This whole concept of living paycheck to paycheck. There's so many studies sharing and proving that if people just missed like one paycheck, they'd be under a fair bit of duress. If they missed 3, it would be like life is over as the way they know it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not God's plan.
They're going to start being, eviction notices if they're renting, or default notices from the bank on their mortgage if they have a mortgage. Because most people are living.
Well, let's not use the word most. More than God's design, because his design was that nobody lived that way.
Well, and recently I heard some stats on the U.S. and Canada, and we used to think the U.S. borrowed more than Canadians did.
I know, it's not a good thing.
No, we're way further ahead in the worst category. Like we are way up there in the dollars we owe compared to our revenue compared to the U.S.
Yeah.
And that's not great.
No. So what did Joseph do? Let's go back to the guys that we can learn from.
Okay, so Joseph in the Bible, in Genesis, he talks, he hears from God. He has the wisdom to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh. But he's very, very wise because he said, oh, we're going to have 7 years of surplus and then 7 years of famine. So what did he do? He bought low. He bought and also required people to tax. He taxed them to bring money, not money at the time. It was grains and all kinds of stuff. And he built the storehouses to house it. They brought it all in. And then during the 7 years of famine, when the demand was high, what did he sell it at?
Very high prices. Well, certainly way more than he paid for it.
Yes.
So he made
Pharaoh very, very rich.
Very rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's using God's wisdom to handle money.
All right.
And, you might be saying, well, if I own a business, how's this apply?
Oh, my goodness.
Right? Because I'm struggling in my business. I'm anxious. I'm worried. Over 20% of entrepreneurs say that financial issues are plaguing their businesses. So we brought in an author on June 5th.
Yeah, 2025.
Yeah. So you can come to the Ultimate Sales Machine Boot Camp. It's based on the Ultimate Sales Machine. It's a red covered book we read decades ago.
Yeah.
And you can grab a copy of it, pre-read it. Decide whether you want to come to the Ultimate Sales Machine.
And yet, if you're going to come, get your ticket before the end of the year. If we might be sold out before then because we have very limited capacity.
Well, especially for the VIP section.
Right. So anyway, the early bird rate runs till the end of December or until we sell out.
Mm-hmm.
And it is on the DekkerTeam.com website. So go there.
So Proverbs 21:20 says, in the house of the wise are storehouses of fine wine and foods, and the fool consumes all that they get. Now, if you translate that to money, right, then we would say the wealthy or the wise wealthy, don't spend everything they get.
Right. So they're not living paycheck to paycheck.
They're not consuming everything they get. Right. And then Proverbs 22:7 says, the borrower is slave to the lender.
Yeah.
And, I take it to the extreme here a little bit.
Yeah, he's kind of going to push the envelope here. So we've had this conversation behind closed doors before the camera goes on. And I said, are you really? You really going to push the envelope? And guess what?
I am. And if you're a tenant, just know that you're borrowing your landlord's property and you need to pay them monthly, right? So you are a borrower if you're a tenant.
Because we've often had I was going to say disagreements, but deep conversation with people saying, well, I don't want to borrow because if I have to borrow from the bank, then I would be a slave to the lender. I'm a slave to the bank if I'm the homeowner.
Right.
And yet, if you're living in something that you don't own, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You
borrow a car because you're paying on it. You borrow your house, or if you're a tenant, you're borrowing the housing from your landlord, and you're a slave to the landlord. You need to pay every month.
Right.
If you don't, they're going to oust you.
Okay.
Yeah. So determine which of the financial principles you'll apply to your life today. Yeah. Just sit down, spend a couple minutes, and figure out what you want to do. We're honored that you joined us on Life's Inside Track, because when we move forward together, we've got this.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward.